Have you ever dreamed of finding a lost city of gold? A place shimmering under the sun, with streets paved in gold and buildings studded with jewels. For centuries, this was the dream of El Dorado, the golden city hidden deep within the jungles of South America. It was a legend that drove countless explorers to madness, obsession, and ruin. But what if I told you the real El Dorado wasn't a city at all? What if it was something far more powerful and far more dangerous? Today, we're not just hunting for treasure. We're on a journey into the human mind to explore El Dorado not as a place on a map, but as a psychological state of gold fever that consumed everyone it touched. This is the story of how a legend became a virus of the mind. Our story begins not with a city, but with a man. The legend of El Dorado, the Gilded One, originated from a Muisca ritual in what is now Colombia. A new chief would cover his body in gold dust and dive into Lake Guatavita, while his people threw gold and emeralds into the water as offerings. It was a local ceremony, a single, powerful act of devotion. But when the Spanish conquistadors heard whispers of this golden man, their imaginations caught fire. Think about it. These men had just crossed a vast ocean, facing storms and sickness, all for the promise of riches and glory. They'd already seen the incredible wealth of the Aztec and Inca empires. So, when they heard tales of a man literally covered in gold, their minds didn't just accept it, they amplified it. A golden man became a golden king, a golden king became a golden kingdom, and a golden kingdom became an entire city of unimaginable wealth. The reality of a ritual was twisted into the fantasy of a destination. This was the first symptom of the fever. The psychological pull of this idea was immense. Carl Jung, the famous psychoanalyst, talked about archetypes, universal symbols that reside in our collective unconscious. Gold is one of the most powerful. It represents not just wealth, but purity, perfection, the divine, the ultimate prize. El Dorado became the physical manifestation of this archetype. It wasn't just about getting rich, it was about achieving a kind of earthly immortality, finding the ultimate validation for all their suffering and sacrifice. It was the pot of gold at the end of a very brutal rainbow. This is where the fever really takes hold. Psychologists call it confirmation bias. The explorers were so convinced El Dorado existed that they saw signs of it everywhere. A glint of pyrite in a river. It must be a clue. A native pointing vaguely east. He must be showing them the way. They ignored all evidence to the contrary: the hostile terrain, the lack of food, the repeated failures of previous expeditions. Their desire for the city to be real was stronger than the reality that it wasn't. Let's look at the tragic story of Gonzalo Pizarro and Francisco de Orellana. In 1541, they led a massive expedition from Quito, with hundreds of Spaniards and thousands of indigenous people, into the Amazon basin. They were chasing rumors of a land of cinnamon and, of course, El Dorado. What they found was not a city of gold, but a green hell. Starvation, disease, and relentless attacks from local tribes decimated their party. Here, the psychological pressure reached a breaking point. Trapped and desperate, Pizarro sent his lieutenant, Orellana, downriver in a small boat to find food. What happened next is a subject of debate. Orellana and his men continued down the river, eventually completing the first ever navigation of the entire Amazon River. He claimed he couldn't return against the current. Was it a betrayal born of desperation, or was he, too, now possessed by his own version of the El Dorado fever, believing that the Golden City was just a little further downstream? He left Pizarro and the others to their fate. Pizarro's men were forced to eat their dogs, their horses, and even the leather from their saddles before staggering back to Quito, a mere fraction of the men who had left. El Dorado had given them nothing but death and despair. This pattern repeated itself again and again. Men like the German knight Philip von Hutten and the infamous Lope de Aguirre, whose journey into madness was immortalized in Werner Herzog's film Aguirre, The Wrath of God. Aguirre was a man so consumed by the fever that he rebelled against the Spanish crown, declared himself a prince, and carved a path of terror through the jungle, murdering his own companions in his paranoid quest. His letters reveal a man completely detached from reality, living entirely within the fantasy of his own golden empire. El Dorado had become his personal psychosis. So, why did they keep going? It's a phenomenon known as the sunk cost fallacy. The more time, money, and lives they invested in the search, the harder it was to give up. To turn back would be to admit that all the suffering, all the death, was for nothing. The ghosts of their fallen comrades and the mountains of wasted resources pushed them forward. The hope of finding El Dorado was the only thing that could justify the horrors they had already endured and inflicted. The treasure was no longer just gold, it was redemption. And what about the indigenous people? To them, El Dorado was a curse. The explorers' fever led them to torture, enslave, and murder countless natives, desperate to extract a secret that didn't exist. The legend, for them, was not a dream but a recurring nightmare brought to their shores by men with a sickness in their hearts. In the end, El Dorado was never found because it was never there to be found. It existed only in the minds of those who sought it. It was a projection of their deepest desires for wealth, glory, and meaning. It was a psychological phantom, a mirage created by greed and hope in the vast and forgiving landscape of the New World. The story of El Dorado serves as a powerful cautionary tale that is still relevant today. How often do we chase our own El Dorados? The perfect job, the flawless relationship, the idea that one more achievement or one more purchase will finally bring us happiness. We can become so fixated on a fantasized destination that we lose ourselves, ignore the reality around us, and cause harm to ourselves and others in the process. The real treasure wasn't the gold. The real treasure was in the journey, but not in the way the explorers thought. The lesson of El Dorado is to find value in the reality we inhabit, not in a glittering fantasy just over the horizon. It's a reminder that sometimes, the most dangerous mirages are the ones we build in our own minds. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the heart of a legend. What are your thoughts on this? What modern-day El Dorados do you see people chasing? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this exploration, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you won't miss our next adventure into history's greatest mysteries. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.